Hey, welcome to part 9, segment 1, July 26th, 2024. This is Bob from the Two Old Guys Garage, and continuing work on going back to my original setup. One of the things that I'd done was in the last couple of days is I definitely confirmed that the Speedway kit that I have and most of the kits will not work with a Borg & Beck clutch. And one of the things that I found out was that there was a company listed by someone on one of these forums that said some company that sold kits actually sold a kit specifically. They wanted to know what type of clutch you had before you bought their kit. Was it a diaphragm or was it a Borg & Beck? So pretty much that's it. Anyway, going back to the other setup. And by the way, it's interesting that the other day when the sun was right, there's the mark where it was hitting on this, and I thought it was only this, but when I look over here, this has got a nick on it too. So both of these in their position were hitting the flywheel. So what happened? Yesterday wasn't very much, but the day before what I did do was I took the Wilwood master cylinder out and put my old MC 2796 master cylinder in, connected up the line, the hydraulic line, put new grade 8 bolts in it, and did a temporary connect on the push rod. I'll have to go back to that later. So what's next is to clean up the parts that are going to go back to the other system, which is the clutch fork and the ball and its push rod, and then have to bleed the slave cylinder. And when I was looking at this last night, this is a fairly straight clutch fork. I was thinking about maybe replacing it, but all the clutch forks that I could find all do a bump up here on the end, which of course would not fit with my existing setup. And examining this, I haven't cleaned it. I'm going to do that next. There is a little bit of wear in here, but given that I can't find this, I'm probably going to clean this up, lube it all up with the German spline lube, and put it all back together. And one good thing I realized last night, that I don't have to take the bell housing off. I can do this in the car with the bell housing on. So that's one less item to work on. Oh yeah, this is the bracket that I made that bolts to the side of the engine. I think I showed this before a while back, but you can see this shape goes into the bell housing to fit around the ridges, and then these two screw holes are where the slave cylinder bolts to. So with that, let me see. That's what I'm going to do. Starting right now, I'm going to clean that puppy up, do another examination, and I'm going to pause this, and maybe I'll get back later depending on what happens. Take care. Bye-bye. Hi, back. All the clutch components, the fork, the ball, and the bearing have all been cleaned up, and I have installed the ball. You can see it there. That's been wire brushed, and the ball has been thoroughly coated with the German spline grease. And I started out using red Loctite, and then I decided I had some thread problems with some residual goop that I used to seal the plastic plug-in. After cleaning that out, all of a sudden then I decided to use the blue Loctite. So it's in and it's torqued to about 35-40 foot-pounds. And then the plug that came out of there was actually able to reuse it there. So I just got to get 3 more plugs, and that's an item in Lowe's across the street. I know where to go. 3/4 inch plug, plastic. So as you can see, the custom bracket for the slave cylinder is installed in and torqued with G8 bolts. That's looking pretty good. Let me show you on the outside here. I always like to use brackets for more than one function. So the main function of that bracket, of course, is to support the slave cylinder, which is bolted in, installed with, again, new G8 lock washers flats. The other function on that is, if you look at the top, you see that Phillips headed screw. That's a stainless steel screw that holds an Adele clamp that clamps the copper vacuum line that comes off the intake manifold and then goes down to the rear where it connects to the power brake, vacuum power brake booster. All right, so I think at this point I'm going to knock off of this day, but it's going pretty good so far. Oh yeah, one last thing on the clutch fork. As I mentioned earlier, put some light on it here. This is all cleaned up. And if you notice, it's a straight one. There's no curves. And what I've done is mark the dimensions. It's 7 inches from the pivot ball to the point of the slave, and it's 3 1/8 inches from the pivot point to about the center of the ball bearing, the throat ball bearing. So that gives you the ratio, which of course means a lot more movement here, and you get the ratio of 3 1/8 over 7 movement over here. Hopefully that's going to be enough. It was at one time. By the way, I've snapped the bearing on in the wrong position. If you'll notice that the clips are on this side, and there's a gap between there on the groove of about 1/4 inch. I guess a lot of instances people do that wrong. So let me put the phone down for a sec. This is how it's supposed to go. And then you can see that the fork arm pieces are tight against that inner ridge to move it in and out, and the clips hold it in place. I decided that this isn't in that bad shape. I don't know if you can see that. There's just a little bit of wear on these 2 points where it contacts that. But otherwise it's all right. It has some weird marks on it. I don't know where the hell these came from or how they got there. And there's no part number. So if anybody out there can figure out what ostensibly GM part, Chevy, something or other, that the straight one comes from, I'd appreciate knowing about that, because if I do have to replace it, I'll let you know where I can get one. So this will be German spline lube here. It already is there. All the contact and wear points, and then you see that valley inside that. You are supposed to load some grease in there for a continuous source of lubrication on this guy sliding on the transmission pilot shaft. So we'll do all that. And right now it's gone pretty good today, so I think I'm going to knock off for today. And I'll catch you all later. Take care. Everybody have a great day out there. Thank you for watching. Sayonara. Hey there, Bob from Two Old Guys Garage. It's July 27th, 2024. This is part 9, segment 2. And I got ahead of myself a bit yesterday because I had installed the pivot ball for the clutch fork. And then last night I got to checking, and the clutch fork could not be introduced into the bell housing with the ball joint, the ball, whatever it is, pivot ball, in the way. So the sequence is, take the fork, slide the fork in first, then put the bearing in and snap the bearing on. Now insert the ball, and then snap the bearing and fork into the ball, and you are there. Okay, oh well, lessons learned. Let's see, preparing the transmission to go back in. I just took the guide pin out for the hydraulic slave. Found the bolt that I had removed, the actual original bolt. It can't be the original bolt because this is dormant on it. I must have changed the bolts when I rebuilt the transmission in '74 or something like that. But anyway, they're in, they're all torqued. Everything's lubed. Oh yeah, that's right, when you put that crap together, don't forget to lube all your points that you need, because it's a bitch to do it when it's inside. So, we're approaching the point where I'm gonna try to wrestle the transmission back in and bolt it up. Then it will be connect the clutch fork hydraulic exterior push rod, which I may have to loosen up and shrink to get it in, and get the transmission in, drop the transmission, start to bolt it together and see if I got a clutch shift. I'll have to bleed the cylinder. Although I cap the cylinders and leave most of the fluid in, there's always some loss when you got the fittings with the plugs in. So we'll see what that entails. Okay, catch y'all later. Bye. Hi, I'm back. Whew, and I'm also pretty much pooped out. Took a while, but I got the transmission back in. It's bolted down, and the transmission bolts are torqued to 40 foot-pounds. And if we look here, there's the clutch fork pushing the throw bearing against the 3 fingers. So I think I'm done for the day. Tomorrow I'll get the push rod in and the return spring on the slave cylinder, and I still have to bolt the rear T10 mount and the drive shaft and the exhaust pipes and the front motor mount nuts, etc., ad nauseum. Anyway, I am out of breath. I'm soaking wet. I'm partially dehydrated. So this is it for P9 segment 2. Thank you all for watching. Appreciate you. Take care. Bye-bye. Hey, hello there. Bob from the Two Old Guys Garage. It's 7/28/2024. This is part 9, segment 3. No. Yes, segment 3, part 9. Getting a little flaky in my old age. Anyway, yesterday, after I kind of cooled off and got hydrated, I came back out and did a little more working on the push rod to the clutch master cylinder, getting that lined up and straightened out. And then I took a 2x4 and a pry bar and I moved the engine back a tad to get the bolt in that wasn't quite lined up at the rear of the T10 transmission mount. Got those in, tightened and torqued. And what else? Oh yeah, bent the brake line that goes to the clutch slave cylinder up a little bit, getting it a little bit away from the muffler, from the heat. Excuse me. And then I got the nuts and the washers on the front motor mount, but I haven't tightened them or pinned them yet. So what I've done this morning is I've worked on the rest of the slave cylinder linkage, as you can see down there. And I bent and straightened out the spring and enlarged the hole in the bracket on the engine side to make it easier to insert the spring. And then I took the push rod, took it apart and chased both the male and female threads and put it in and got it aligned to where the slave cylinder is as far back as possible, and there's a minimal clearance from the 3 fingers on the clutch pressure plate to the throw bearing, and that hopefully should be a better start. Backing that up in the cylinder means that I'll get maximum travel of the cylinder, which it's possible I may not have been getting and might have been part of the problem. I'll find out soon. Then I went underneath and installed the drive shaft. Got that done. So now what I have to do is get the exhaust hooked back up. And then I'm going to bleed the clutch cylinder and see where we are. So I'll be back in a little bit. Pausing here. Take care. Bye. Hi, I'm back. A little longer than a short bit, but I just finished hooking up the exhaust. Everything is connected back together with one exception. I haven't tightened down the front motor mounts and put the cotter pin keys into it. And of course I haven't bled the clutch yet. So I think at this point I'm going to wrap it up for a day, being thoroughly soaked with perspiration and dehydrated. And I'm too tired to even put all those tools away. I'll do that tomorrow morning. Give it a break. Tomorrow morning then, cotter pins and nuts on the front motor mounts. And then I'll probably pressure bleed, since I did go to the trouble a while back to make an adapter to be able to do that with my pressure bleeder. And let's see what happens tomorrow. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Hey, hi there. It's 7/29/2024. This is Bob from the Tool Guy's Garage. And this is part 9, going to be segment 4. Yesterday I knocked off and had got quite a lot done, but after I cooled off in the house and came back out and actually did the motor mounts with the cotter pins, and I drilled out the holes in the old Ford bolts because they're a little on the small size and wouldn't quite fit my cotter pins. So you can see now that there's a regulation cotter pin that's bolted down. And then I remembered to tie the throttle back together. But the big news is I started bleeding, and of course there's air in the system. And what's happening is, this is my bleeder setup, and it's a typical, Motive products that I bought about 10 or 11 years ago to do the brake stuff. And unfortunately, it comes with a polypropylene hose, plastic clear hose, that is one piece all the way to whatever cap you're supposed to seal your master cylinder with. Well, the plastic cracks and it screws up and it leaks. So quite a few years ago, I ended up changing it out for a rubber fuel line, neoprene fuel line, or whatever it is. And then I made custom caps, and the first cap I made was for the Mustang fruit jar so that I could bleed the brakes. That works pretty good. The, the worm cramp is around the cap because the cap is so big it's hard to turn it down in that recess, and that gives me leverage to tighten it up, make sure it won't leak. And then a while back, not too far back, I made a cap to fit the clutch master cylinder out of the extra cap from the other master cylinder, the spare one. And if you look down there, you can see that it's drilled and tapped for the pipe. And then the bleed holes, there was 2 bleed holes on either side of it that I drilled out, tapped, and put those little Allen, not Allen there, whatever, little screw plugs in with Loctite. And early on, this was separated because it's hard to twist the cap onto the threads with the hose connected to the booster. So that's a quick disconnect that allows this to go in. And then later on, still yet, added that shutoff valve, which goes a lot to getting prepped up and making it work, and not losing fluid all over the place when you're putting it in, and more importantly, taking it out. So we've already done a couple of bleed operations a little bit ago, and boy, this thing is a small car. Okay, foot on the clutch. If you look, down there. You can see the slave cylinder pushing on the fork and depressing the 3 forks. And I had an idea the other day that seemed to work out pretty good, and that was that if I put it into 4th gear, which it is, that's 1-to-1. Since the car is jacked up and the drive shaft won't turn because it's in gear. But if I push the clutch down, I don't know if you can see that, but I'm able to turn the drive shaft, which means the clutch is disengaging. Is it disengaging enough? Don't know, not sure. I'll find out. What I'm doing is I'm letting the pressure stay on the pressure bleeder to make sure that I get all the air out of it. And of course, there's always a problem with the .5 silicon fluid retaining air bubbles. So I'm not going to rush it at this point. But let's come down here. There's where I'm bleeding, my bleeding setup. And that's what I've let out so far. By the way, this thing wobbles all over the place. I finally got smart and took a couple of magnets and tied them to the can so that I can basically stick it there and it doesn't fall over and blow fluid all over the place. Weird thing this morning, I just realized the bleeder screw is 10 millimeter on the wrench, but it's American 3/8 24 threads, kind of a hybrid bleeder screw. Anyway, that's it for now. I'm going to pause this, wait a while, I'm going to bleed some more, and I'll get back to you later. The next step will be finish the bleeding and start the engine and see what it does shifting in a gear. So keep your fingers crossed. See you in a bit.